Hello and welcome to today's historic best of 3 deck tech and gameplay video on an update to an old video. This is version 4 that you can't super see of Colorless Ramp. Now, Colorless Ramp is a card that wants to use a whole bunch of colorless spells, both as traditional as colorless gets, ramp sources like the new Sowing Myco Spawn, the older classic of Forsaken Monument, and you could argue that Kozilek's Command, if you create the spawn creature tokens, also counts as ramp. But we use these ramp spells to ideally get to our big, scary, heavy, colorless top end, like your Ulamogs and your Ugins, hell, even Null Drifter and Wormcoil Engine also, I would argue, count as big, scary, colorless things to ramp into. Now, to get us there in between, we also have just, generally okay colorless creatures and somewhat interaction. Again, the Myco Spawn, it can also be interaction in a creature to sort of stabilize, Thought-Knot Seer, Thief of Existence. All of these things sort of do the same thing of interacting with the board and keeping you alive while you're doing your cute, goofy, colorless ramp into your aforementioned big, scary things. And as far as our big scary things, pretty self-explanatory for our colorless sources. The big ones are like Ulamog and Ugin the Spirit Dragon, because those are the real money, honestly, if we're going to be honest. They're the things you want to ramp into. Now, before we go on to the land base, I will attempt to address the comments before they get here. I know what you'll be seeing if you are newer to Magic or don't have experience with the Devoid mechanic. This deck says it's colorless ramp. I see a whole bunch of, colored mana symbols in the cards. And yes, you are correct, but I have technically not lied. If you want to be really technical, 1, lands are always considered colorless regardless of the color of mana they produce. So, say we have the Breeding Pools and the Yavimaya Coast, even though they produce colored mana, or sometimes colorless in the case of the coast, they are technically considered as, from like a rule standpoint, of being colorless. Same applies to any of our Devoid cards. Even though they have colored mana symbols in their casting cost, they are, as you can see by the Devoid tooltip, technically considered no color. Which really helped to, Devoid not only in Modern Horizons 3, but as well as like the old Devoid cards from Zendikar, where is it? Like World Breaker. Now we have enough Devoid cards that you can somewhat compensate for the weaknesses that previous versions of my list that I you can cover their previous versions issues where before you didn't have the greatest amount of interaction spells. And to be honest, we're a Simic deck and we're having to rely on Devoid interaction spells, or colorless interaction spells. So it's still a bit of a hurdle, but it's much better than what it was. So that's why, it says colorless, but it isn't. Because the way, another little bit of behind the scenes footage before we go on to the land base, is the timing at which Modern Horizons 3 came out for Arena. I only had, 2 or 3 days to record, so I had to fall back on the previous experience of an older list, as well as the additional testing that I could kind of pump out in those 3 or 4 day time. So, and Colorless Ramp worked pretty well. I saw Jim Davis do a sort of, a blue-green Eldrazi ramp thing, and I thought, well, that looks interesting, and I wanted to update my colorless ramp list for a long time, so Modern Horizons gave me a good way to do this. So if it seems like the deck might not be the most tuned or whatever, or hasn't had the most amount of testing, that's kind of because it is. Or because that's sort of true. I had to rely on the testing of the previous versions of Colorless Ramp and the extra testing that I've done in the last 3 days, where I have been pumping out games with this thing, where normally I play a more healthy amount. But anywho, all of that out of the way, land base, super simple. A small amount of lands that create blue and green mana to cast our few amounts of Devoid spells, even though they have colored mana in them. Yavimaya Coast is a great one because it can produce either the colored mana, or once you have Forsaken Monument, can produce colorless mana and you can get extra from it. Cavern of Souls is a great little way to give our creature, our big scary, usually Eldrazi, but sometimes Phyrexian, spells the ability to be uncountered, since we are in a Simic deck and everything has to sort of meet the Devoid colorless theme, we have to be a little cute with our card choices here, and Cavern of Souls lets us do that. It produces colorless mana, much like the Coast if we need it, or can produce colored mana that makes our stuff uncounterable, which is a thing you'll run into. A couple copies of Ugin's Labyrinth as basically a, how do you want to call it? Like a better waste, more or less, for lack of a better term. Since we do have loads of, big above 7 cost scary things we can hide under, or we can imprint upon the Labyrinth, it's, it's usually a better waste. But even if it's just a waste, it's perfectly fine. It's one of those we don't mind having colorless. We don't mind having colorless producing lands in this deck, where normally that could be a hindrance. 4 copies of Waste, since not only, again, do we want just any form, we need forms of colorless mana producing, but having Waste as a basic now means that, say, if our opponent or uses or activates, say, a Field of Ruin, we don't just get, Stone Rain. We can actually fetch some sort of basic with a card like that. Or even like a Boseiju. If an opponent uses like a Boseiju, we could also fetch Waste if we needed to. And we also have 4 copies of Zolfrin Void, as again, perfectly fine little colorless land that does scry when it enters the battlefield. Since now we have access to, we have to bring in more colors, like color producing sources of mana. We don't get to use all the cute little crystal grottos of the world that let you scry to sort of filter your draw. But we're okay with that, since now with cards like Null Drifter and Kozilek's Unsealing, we have actually, like, well, I'll say unconditional card draw, but it's like less conditional than an entirely colorless deck would have to do. And that is the basics of the main deck. Sideboard, I would say they're, like, normally I say they're relatively self-explanatory. This time, to keep the Devoid colorless theme to be technically correct, you had to make some weird choices. A couple copies of Null Elemental Blast, since there are the occasional multicolored things that you want to get rid of. Some Hope Intercoattles to interact with our opponents if they're trying to get rid of our stuff, since we don't have access to, like, we'll use the example of like a Heroic Reinforcements. You don't really have access to that in a traditional actual Devoid or colorless deck. A Coatl is just some ways to interact with, say, sweepers or interaction that you might not normally have. It's not great, but it's all we have to, meet the theme. Another copy of Thief of Existence if we need to deal with some non-creature, non-land stuff. Basically, if we need some interaction for non-creatures, an additional copy of Thief of Existence is a way to bring that in, again, in a deck that doesn't have the best answers, doesn't have the best answers, but has better answers than it used to have. World Breaker is actually a pretty clean answer, all things considered. It's a big, scary creature that is an Eldrazi itself, so, it ticks all the boxes, and we can use it to get rid of lands, artifacts, enchantments, basically tricky permanents, anything from the Enchantress decks or artifact decks that, like your, what are they called? Like your affinity decks that sometimes show up, or against like, like a Gates deck, the ability to just exile, a Maze's End or a Baldur's Gate on a big scary creature that we want to cast anyway is great. Another Ugin the Ineffable, since sometimes this is really honestly here mostly as a, in theory, repeatable form of destruction of a permanent. Again, we don't have a whole lot of clean answers to permanents, so Ugin the Ineffable, both the sideboard copy and the main board copy, are more sacrifices that you have to make to just have some form of interaction, because sometimes you just need it. Another copy of Ugin, this is primarily if you need like a sweeper against more go-wide decks. A couple of Field of Ruins, since if there are to have additional copies of ways to just to interact with opposing lands that are particularly scary. Again, your Gates deck is like a genuinely scary thing, as that's like a hard combo win that you don't have a whole lot of answers to, so sometimes the Field of Ruin is great. And again, produces colorless mana, so you can slot it in and out pretty freely. And 3 copies of Scavenger Grounds as a way to have Graveyard Hate in our land base that, again, produces colorless mana, so it's not really that much of a pain. You could just, in either of these lands, you could just like swap them out for like a Zul'Farun Void if you need them. And that is the admittedly longer than normal deck tech. And again, I apologize, but Modern Horizons 3 came out. I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I had to update an older list rather than do one of the many new lists that I have in the wings waiting. Now, with that very long-winded deck intro out of the way, we will go on now to game number 1. And game number 1 with our little Colorless Ramp list. And this is a fine hand. It has 3 lands and 4 spells. It's not like a great one, since we don't have a way to produce some colored mana to either you make use of our Null Drifter or our Myco Spawn here. I don't know why Arena is like absolutely shitting the bed today, but sometimes it happens. In that case, we'll play a Void here. Just try to look for some sort of interaction. Kozilek is not it. If we do have a Kozilek's command, so we can always get rid of something big and scary. Or, in this case, small and scary. But going against a pretty traditional mono-red list. In that case, we just go ahead and pass. It really does sting to not do anything in response in the early turns. But we're not really in a position where we have much of a choice here. But next turn, we can always Kozilek's command, and if we draw nothing else. Yep. In that case, we will go ahead. Play a Kozilek's command. I could do it on their turn, but I don't want to take the chance. So in that case, we will... yeah, we'll probably just make a spawn here. A value of 1. I create some dudes, and I exile your guy. Kozilek's command is another one of those... or is a... yeah, is another one of those examples of, like I talked about in the admittedly longer than normal intro, where when you're looking for colorless interaction, your choices are kind of limited, so you just have to make do with what you can, if that makes sense. And honestly, like, we're not that dead. If he cracks the Firebrand immediately, like, I don't think we care. That's fine. Totally take the damage. Next turn, I guess we'll play a Mystic Forge. Another beautiful quirk of all of our cards technically meeting the restriction of being colorless means that we can even cast our colored spells off the top of our library with the Mystic Forge. Thought Not Seer is something. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll stick with the Forge. I was thinking about doing the Thought Not Seer, but they aren't applying the most amount of pressure. They are a red deck, so they could have some form of artifact interaction here, which wouldn't be great. I'm actually going to get rid of the other Thought Not Seer off the top, because we really want to get a land to play a Wormcoil Engine. I mean, that's not a land, but Ugin's good. We've gotten very lucky in that our opponent hasn't had a particularly... that's yucky. Hasn't had a particularly aggressive opening. So we sort of have some wiggle room here to, like, get some bad draws, for lack of a better term. I guess we will have to play the Thought Not Seer now. See what our opponent has in their hand. Weirdly, I have to get rid of the Lava Coil because I value the blockers so much in this instance. Do I have to get rid of the other Wormcoil Engine just to try and get to lands? think I do. Yeah. It'd be nice to have either Wormcoil Engine, but yeah, without the lands to get to it, we're kind of pissing in the wind. Not great, but he, you know, he did eat up 2 spells. So yeah, we'll go ahead. Just do it now. That's not a land either. Hang on. Okay, I guess we can scry on my upkeep to get rid of it. Hopefully find something here. Usually the deck is not that bad at finding its colored sources. That counts. That resolves. I guess then we'll do a Forsaken Monument. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can do 6 damage out of his hand next turn as it stands. With any luck, I will be able to untap next turn and then gain some life from Forsaken Monument, and at the minimum have some sorts of interaction and be able to answer their board. We should be able to do an Ugin. Yeah, Ugin's probably the safest. Gaining 2 life from the colorless spell, and then we'll just down tick for 3. Ugin is one of the few instances of a great thing to ramp into, where normally you sort of have to like make do with weird colorless spells. At the top end, colorless has, like, you know, pretty good answers to most things. And now we've largely turned the corner. I don't think we need to worry that much. Like, yeah, we're going to take some damage, but we're just going to play an Ulamog next turn, probably. And just, like, ruin our opponent's day. And that's fantastic. We're not even eating the damage. Okay. In that case, we will Breeding Pool tapped. Gonna uptick, I guess, on... Is there... Yeah, it's just permanence, right? Yes, we can, I guess, do the War Boss. It doesn't terribly matter. As with the Ulamog, we'll get rid of the rest of their board. Again, gaining life and slowly just kind of crawling out of it. There's an argument to be made that we could have, say, started exiling their lands, but this way we know we are alive, where if we would have exiled their lands, there's a real chance we could have still died. Now, probably not very high, but, you know. We've largely stabilized. There's no reason to throw the game away. Thank you. I guess we'll do a Wormcoil Engine. There we go. We'll take that. Let's see. They don't have a whole lot of things we need to interact with, so I don't think... Thief of Existence, if nothing else, is just an okay interaction spell. So maybe, like, 1 Thief goes down... Oh, I didn't switch that back. Like an Ugin comes in. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. They're a monocolored deck, so Null Elemental Blast isn't going to do anything. Yeah, go ahead and run it. And while we have a moment before the game really starts, I would like to apologize for like the 10-minute deck tech. I normally try and keep those pretty short, but every once in a while you need to explain something, or I feel like I need to explain some things, and this was one of those times. So thank you all for your understanding. And you know, there are time codes in the description, like the first line of the description, that you can all click on, as I don't meet the subscriber requirements to have the, chapters or whatever in my videos. Anywho. 2 land, but 1 land's a scry land. We have a Null Drifter, so we can always evoke that. Yeah, sure. Not the most exciting, but we take it. That helps a lot. In that case, yeah, we will go ahead and do a Void. Ugin's Binding is great. Any form of interaction is fantastic. And later on, you know, the ability to effectively bounce their whole board is a lovely little piece of kit. Guess we'll do the coast now, since we don't have much else to do anyway. Okay, they got some runaway Steamkins. I think we know what we're gonna use the Ugin's Binding for next turn. We will Cavern of Souls. It's not gonna matter, but I guess, you know, just for posterity's sake. Naming Eldrazi, since, you know, sometimes we need to get some colored mana. We'll go ahead and pass and see what our opponent does. 1 second. Sorry about that, blowing my nose. Doing things, perfectly fine. I think we'll do the binding now on the bigger of the Steamkins, so there's less of a chance they get to use the mana from it. Might have some instant speed spell that he can use in response, which would suck, but, you know, what are you gonna do? But if nothing else, it's just holding up priority for the Firebrand. Feeling pretty good, if we're gonna be honest. I mean, well, as good as you can against a red deck. But next turn we have options. So we're gonna do a Waste. We'll play a Sowing Mycospawn, not only as a blocker, but we'll also use this to go find an Ugin's Labyrinth. Probably get rid of the Ulamog, since it's going to be a little far away. Let's see. Giving us access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next turn we can play a Wormcoil Engine, which will be lovely, as a stabilization tool. Unless he just has lethal. Set. Okay. Oh, he does. He's just going to catch. Okay. Okay, that's actually well played. To be fair, though, I mean, it's nice to see a mono red deck, like, do well. And then he just cracks the Firebrand and we die. Our opponent, yeah, played entirely, you know, fair and upright. And they did the thing that you will hear me talk about in many of my videos, both in Historic, in Magic, and in Hearthstone. They got to the point where, you know, if they didn't have that this turn, I was, you know, going to play a big, scary, life-stealing, what's it called, Wormcoil Engine, and was probably going to turn the corner. It's one of those that, you know, they did the right thing. And yeah, I guess we'll just run it. I think our sideboarding plan is, you know, pretty sound. I don't think we need to terribly change anything. You know, they just did well, drew well, and, you know, won fair and square. Luckily, we do get to have game number 3 on the play here, which is lovely. Perfectly fine. 3 lands, 4 spells, a command to get rid of, like, a problematic creature in the early stages. Go ahead and play a Waste, so we have the 2 colorless open and ready to go. There's a part of me that wants to use the Boseiju to get rid of the Kumano, but I don't think we need to. Especially since next turn we can actually just get rid of it with a Thief of Existence, which is a nice touch. So yeah, we'll go ahead and play the Boseiju. The Thief of Existence, getting rid of the Kumano. Yeah, if he kills it, he draws a card. That's fine. But I'd rather you have the card than the big, scary guy. Or, well, the relatively scary etching of Kumano. And, you know, if I block and they, in theory, would have had some sort of removal spell, you know, they would have 2 for 1 dust and gotten a card back. It's not that bad. In that case, we'll do a Cavern of Souls, and much like last game, we will play the Mycospawn. Sadly without the kicker, but again, just going to find an Ugin's Labyrinth. A lovely little trick. And once again, getting rid of the Ulamogs, the Ceaseless Hunger, as it's a little expensive. at this particular point in time. No reason to attack. We're doing really good. And another little perk of all of our creatures being technically devoid, even though they have colored mana, is that we can always down-tick, which I think you might have saw last game, but even if you didn't, as my brain is still recovering from being sick, the down-tick exiling a board will actually spare our board, so it can often be a one-sided board wipe. Anywho, 1000% we block. If they have some sort of removal spell or like a burn spell, we're perfectly happy with that. They did eventually get rid of the Thief of Existence, but we're feeling pretty securely like in the driver's seat right now. Oh, I love Rekindling Phoenix. I'm so sad this card doesn't see a whole lot of play. That's a great top end card to have like in your first red deck to sort of like emblemize like what you want your you know, your top end to look like. It's a great card for that. I know it says I can't gain life, but I think we just play the Worm Coil as a big body anyway. No point in attacking. You can just block with the Rekindling Phoenix. What are we at land-wise now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more land and we can play an Ugin. And just sweep their whole board and, you know, likely win. Doing, you know, and our opponent is doing all the right things and making good plays. This will really just come down to if I find a land or if I don't. And even if I don't, I can always play the command exiling the Phoenix. As that's like easily the biggest, scariest thing on their board right now. So yeah, that's just gonna be what we do here. Kozilek's command. Well, hang on. What do we want to do here? Hold on. I would need to get 1, 2, 1, 2. I would need to get 4. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you might as well name 5 because you guy can't cast anything else that turn anyway. I guess we'll honestly just do the scry thing. I scry X, draw a card, exiling target creature. Well, wow, none of those are lands, so that would have really sucked. Well, hang on, do I care? Do we want the monument? None of these are useful. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take the monument. That'll, in a roundabout way, get us there anyway, even if we don't draw a land. Getting rid of the Tybalt, or at least threatening it, will likely chump block, but we got to get rid of the blocker sometime anyway. Again, we'll say correctly so, we'll point that damage at my face. Again, Kumano. To be fair, our opponent has like a respectable grip of cards here. Okay, are we doing anything, or... Good, good. Well done. Yeah, fingers crossed we actually, like, managed to find, like, like a land here. I think we'll be okay, since we can always just Forsaken Monument and, like, Ugin away their Steamkin or something. I mean, good on them. They're doing, like, fantastic. But sometimes you get lucky and you draw the Ugin. Now, we aren't technically... We haven't technically killed them, but, like... They really have, like, 1 turn and 2 cards to make some things happen. Because now we gain life. They aren't technically dead, but, like, they're damn near dead. Fair enough. Opponent played totally fair and square, very upright. Can't really ask for much more. And that is honestly a pretty good showing for the list. I suppose now we'll go on to game number 2. And game number 2 with our little Colorless Ramp list. And of course, we're going to play first. It's a little land heavy, but it's like fine. Hopefully, you know, we'll draw into something, or some amount of cards that we can, like, you know, do things on the somewhat earlier turns. And not, not for nothing. Even if we don't, which I don't think will be the case. Naming Eldrazi. But even if we don't, and we have to just slow walk our way to an Ugin the Ineffable, you can always use it to draw cards. Not for nothing. Okay, Ravenous Squirrel. I guess we'll do a Cavern of Souls. Naming Phyrexian. Pardon that. Okay. Idluris deck. Some sort of, like, Golgari sacrifice thing, which is fine. We're really going to have to slow walk our way to an Ugin. Okay. Wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but sure, I guess. Deadly Dispute, sacking some stuff and some dudes. And not for nothing, we can always just, on turn 6, play an Ugin, down tick, and get rid of the squirrel. Okay, okay, yeah. It's gonna be a very boring early turns, but what are you gonna do? Now, I mean, if nothing else, this will be a good show a good showing for the deck, and that, you can draw nothing but lands and still be, kind of okay. Although, all things considered, this squirrel's gonna hurt, like, a lot. Playing lands, drawing cards. He's gonna hurt me. Okay, well, that sucks a lot. We have to make him use that. Okay, that helps. That helps a lot, actually. We'll play a Waste. Play a Forsaken Monument. This should help a little bit in our in regaining our life and sort of stabilizing somewhat. Now they could have like a Beseju or something and get rid of the monument immediately, which would suck. But what are you gonna do? Sometimes it happens. Yeah, it's really gonna hurt. My God, it'd be great if we drew an Ugin here, so we could like just sweep their whole board. But even if all we get access to is like an Ugin the Ineffable, and I guess also a Wormcoil Engine, that's fine. My God, does he just kill me? Get the fuck out of here! He kills me if he's. Wait, hang on. Sacks 8/9. He doesn't kill me, but it's fucking close, right? Unless I'm, like, misdoing the math. Oh, yeah, he can just... My God. Okay, yeah. Okay, turns out you cannot just draw only lands, but I didn't think I was gonna really heavily flood. Honestly, Thief of Existence, there's actually a good amount of stuff to hit. The Coatl is not that useful. They're gonna have the mana to get rid of stuff. Bring out the Voids here. And bring in the Scavenging Grounds, since they're going to have graveyard stuff. They have a whole lot of 1-mana and 2-mana spells, so our Kozilek, we're not really going to be able to counter stuff off of it, so that can go. So maybe like... I guess a couple Null Elemental Blast, because some of their stuff is multicolored. Log's kind of nice. His binding is okay. Yeah. I was thinking about trying to add another Ugin, but I think we'll be okay. Now, if I see another 5-land 2-speller, I'm going to throw that motherfucker back. I did, in fact, learn a little bit. Again, play first. That's better. It's not great, but it's better. Gonna try and save the Ugin's Labyrinth for when I can actually tuck something underneath it. I guess we'll do a Void first. Don't need another land, as I feel the sneeze coming on. Alright, managed to catch that sneeze. Cavern of Souls. Oh, please don't die. Is my game gonna freeze? No way. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Arena's been, like, shitting the bed. Absolutely. Anywho, Cavern of Souls, naming Eldrazi. Yeah, I apologize. I don't know what is happening that's, like, making Arena struggle so much, but my god. Yeah, I mean, like, yesterday it wasn't doing this bad. I just something's happened, I guess, and I can't really explain what. Play the scavenger grounds. If nothing else, we can always just walk our way into like a Mystic Forge and or some Thought-Knot Seers. Perfectly fine. Other what? Deadly Dispute maybe. Yeah, we'll go ahead and play a Breeding Pool and tap it in, and we will use a Mystic Forge. Okay, Ugin's Binding is something. Granted, we haven't exactly found anything to hide under a labyrinth, but we haven't exactly lacked land drops. And really, if it comes down to it, like, if you decide you want to play this deck at home, don't be afraid to play an Ugin's Labyrinth if you only are tapping it for colorless. Like, it's still a perfectly fine card. Okay, they're gonna get a little big. Yeah, they're doing good. My god. I mean, good on them. I haven't seen a deck like this in a hot minute. Gonna have to be really, like... The unsealing would be nice, but I just don't think we have the, like, opportunity to do that, do we? Yeah, we just have to bounce the squirrel. As you saw last game, like, that thing can absolutely run away with the game if left to its own devices. I don't even terribly like having that on the top of my deck, but I'm a little gun-shy about, about, like, paying the life to get rid of it. Although it's getting to a point where I might not have a choice. I think this thing might... Well, no. I can use it. Guess we'll do a Cavern of Souls. Then we have Phyrexian this time. Again, not going to matter. But that's fine. We'll do an Unsealing here. Is there anything I'd even want to cast? I guess. Because we're in a really bad spot here. I don't need another land off the top. I mean, Myco spawns something. It feels really, really bad to, like, not do anything this particular turn. But if they at least go to, like, sack the Cauldron Familiar and do the Witch's Oven shenanigans, they, like, try to bring it back, I can always, like, in response, get rid of their yard. Okay, let me do it in response, please. Exile all graveyards. I don't like it, but... I don't like getting rid of my own Ugin's Binding, but we're clearly not drawing the 7-cost things we need, to where I don't think I'm going to get a chance to use the Binding if I don't do it. I'll just die before that happens. I mean, good on you, opponent. Well done. Okay. I mean, kind of forget that the squirrel is a Modern Horizons card, actually. Oh, that's... Okay, he is just gonna... Okay, we're not gonna have a thing to pitch, and that's fine. Okay, in that case, I'm just gonna do Kozilek's Command on 1. Exiling a creature, and I guess scrying 1 and drawing 1. Scrying 1, drawing 1, exiling the creature. It is annoyingly... He's just going to sack it in response, but we're at a stage where I don't think I really have, like, the luxury of, like, caring. I'm sorry, he's letting it resolve. Okay, that seems odd. In that case, we're going to do a Thief of Existence. Get rid of their Trail of Crumbs to get rid of their card draw engine. That's so odd that he let that go. Why? It's not like I had split second. You could have... Okay. Okay, that's fine. That seems very, very odd to let that resolve. But hey, I'm sure they had a good reason. Not only do I not want to, like, paying myself to get rid of the Otawara off the top, but, like, I think, honestly, it might sound silly, but being able to bounce something is, like, kind of important right now. Because we're really in, like, the throes of it. Unless our opponent just AFK'd out, and that's why they didn't respond as I would have. No, they're hovering. They're here. Okay, that's fine. Take the card. I got rid of the card draw engine. That's fine. Okay, Cauldron Familiars. Perfectly fine. We don't love this. And yeah, we're also getting low enough now to where we really actually cannot get rid of things off the top normally anyway. Okay. Sure. Oh my god, I don't need a waste on the top there. Yeah, I know I'm saying I'm gun shy, but I have to find something that's much bigger. I can do something with that. Makes spawns, I have additional blockers. Hopefully they don't have a removal spell for it, but, you know, even if they do... Do I play the Soaring City? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think yes, because if I were to draw... If I were to find an Ugin buried somewhere on the top here, I want to be able to cast it natively with just the lands I happen to have, and not rely on the spawns being around, because I cannot, with any, like, certainty guarantee that. Okay. Getting rid of it. He does have the Luris, which is, like, not fantastic. Meat Hook Master. Okay. To be fair, though, that was his whole turn just to get rid of the engine. And this also sort of reinforces my hope to, like, my playing the Soaring City here to, like, be able to, well, there he goes, to be able to, like, get my land count up to play an Ugin, like, natively without the spawns. I mean, credit given to our opponent. They're doing phenomenally. Oh, fucking Ulamog. Damn it, that would have been good to have. And my life's so low that I don't think I can afford to get rid of that. Whenever creature controls dies, each opponent loses a life. So I guess we could do a Thief of Existence. Getting rid of the Witch's Oven, because that thing is going to give him the food he needs to get rid of all my stuff. And we will actually Thought Not Seer to get the Luris out of their hand. I don't think there's anything else I would want. Yeah, go ahead and take the push. You can push anything on my board. I don't care about that. Oh, he can't block, so that's good. And now that I think about it, next turn, if I happen to keep these spawns alive, I can play the Ulamog here and hopefully make some stuff happen. Because they're largely top-decking. Like, yeah, he could, in theory... Yeah, he could, like... in theory, push my Thought Not Seer, but I wasn't gonna give him that for free. 1, 2... Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4... He has nothing in his hand, so I think I'm safe to block here. Because he doesn't have any food. Yeah, I lose a life from the massacre, but, like, I think we're okay. Okay, Ulamog. Give me something here. You're... What? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I assumed that the Ugin was tapping for 2 mana in my brain. Well, shit. In that case, I guess we'll play a Myco Spawn, because it's the only thing I can do. I guess a Black Source, because the Black's really where the, like, the kill potential comes in play here. And, oh, that's actually really good. I forgot I can grab a Scavenger Grounds off of that. Yay! Does my game plan change more that I know what I'm going up against now? That extra Ugin's looking particularly useful here. The Ineffable is just a nice way to get rid of a thing. The Myco Spawn's useful. Binding is not the most useful. Weirdly, I'm going to cut a Binding. Because lots of his creatures have, like, you know, useful enter the battlefield effects, you know. Or some of his creatures have, or non-permanents have, like, perks to being recast over again. Like the Meat Hook Massacres, or, you know, the Cauldron Familiar, or even the Goose is, like, not a great thing for them to be casting over and over. Oh, God. 2 lands, some Thief of Existences, some Forge. Okay, I'll keep it. This is, like, admittedly a very sketchy keep. I'm hoping that I'm going to draw into more lands. Okay, that'll do it. I'm going to really aggressively look for a land here. That's perfect. We'll take that all day. Now if they play some, like, again, Trail of Crumbs, whatever the hell that 2 mana card is, we can get rid of that. They have to play a Witch's Oven. We also can get rid of that with Thief of Existence. We will go ahead and get rid of, or not get rid of, to play the Yavimaya Coast. I want to keep the Kozilek's Command in case they play, like, a Squirrel or a Familiar, and I gotta get rid of it. They're not doing anything too scary yet. Witch's Oven, that's fine. I guess they could, in theory, like, is it on cast? Yeah, it's on cast. It's not on ETB, which is nice. Yeah, in that case. Oh, I'm so happy we drew that. I guess we'll play the Boseiju here, which should allow us, if I did my mana right. Yep, cast the Thief of Existence, get rid of the Witch's Oven. They could, like, in response, get rid of it with, like, another Deadly Dispute. But they have more than one. And they're probably just going to get rid of the Thief here. Really? Okay. I thought they were going to, like, crack a treasure and, like, push it or something. Okay. He had to have just drawn that turn, I'm assuming. Okay. Oh, that, I don't think I terribly care about that. Oh, man, if you brought in a Soul Guide Lantern, so we especially were smart to take out the Binding, because that would have been an obvious, like, thing to get rid of. I guess we could play an Otawara, and play a Mystic Forge here. Start seeing what we find on the top. It does leave our shields down for a turn, which is, you know, like a concern. But our hope here is to, like, just find some lands or useful things to play so we can get to an Ugin. A waste is fine. We want lands right now. And really, honestly, like, yeah, they're not doing that much. Without, like, a Ravenous Squirrel or the Cauldron Familiar, like, the deck doesn't have a fantastic way to, like, apply a buttload of pressure. Seems odd, but I think I'm just going to pass and keep up the command and see what we're going to do there. It's fine. Making some food. Maybe we exile a creature. He has a lot of mana on hand, but he might be flooding a little bit. Yeah, he appears to be flooding. It's going to go in hand. So now, if nothing else, that's considered a colorless spell, right? Or a multicolored spell, I should say. Counter, target multicolored spell. Hell yeah, Null Elemental Blast. I knew this thing would be good. But it's not going to be super useful all the time, but you'll see some action with it. Weirdly, white, sorry, colorless, 1, 2. So I guess we could do X equaling 2, and we can make a couple of spawns here. No, that's not what I said. Make me some spawns. Exile a dude for 2. Spawns. Get rid of the witch. They appear to be flooding, so I don't want to give them the ability to like kill their own witch easily. Any amount of card draw we can deny is like the best. There's an Ugin on our hand. We have a Ulamog on the top. Weirdly, I'm actually going to Thought Knot Seer and like confirm my suspicions. If he has anything of any note in his hand, we want to get rid of it. Unless he just gets rid of it now. But if he pushes it, I'm going to see the other card. So, like... Does it have to... choose card... Leaves the battlefield. Okay, so it's not contingent on if I get anything. I still get the trigger. Yeah, that's fine. I was about to say, I still get the trigger. We will go ahead and keep the Thief of Existence. The food is not that important. As we've demonstrated, there are much more important things to get rid of. Honestly, we kind of like the Ulamog. And we will cast a Worm Coil off the top, like, very easily. Ugin's pretty nice. Yeah, we're doing good. That's fine. To be fair, he's not dead, but he can, like, gain a lot of life. He clearly doesn't have, like, a deadly dispute, otherwise he would have already played it and started cashing in those foods. I mean, that is a Cauldron Familiar. That'll do it. Or that is a thing. It's not going to do it, I should say. Weirdly? Yeah, I think I... Hang on. Yeah, we're going to play the other Worm Coil Engine. I actually want to draw that land. I was thinking about playing the Ugin and upticking to make creatures, but I think I didn't just apply some pressure with some Worm Coil Engines. And with the nerfed Cauldron Familiar, you can't block, which is very nice. You can gain some life. But he is, like, now pretty exclusively just on the mode of top decking cards. Feeling pretty good. And this is one of those, I actually do kind of, while we aren't really doing much or talking about much, I actually like the fact that Historic can nerf cards. Like, you know, it is a, or Historic anyway, is basically a digital format. I don't mind that cards get nerfed. Other people get really butthurt, or their brains are so small they can't acknowledge that 2 variants of a card exist. At which point, you know, you can't help those people. You know, just let them be happy thinking whatever they think. That's fine. You might as well attack. I don't need that, do I? Yeah, go ahead and get that off the top. See if we can find something a little more useful. Micro Spawn's pretty good. We will go ahead and kick it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, the black is where a lot of the screwy bits come from. I guess we'll go... Yeah, we'll just look for a scavenger grounds. Just gotta find the bad boy. That way, if I need to panic and get rid of his graveyard, it's fine. We don't really have that much we want to get rid of. Or, we don't have that much in our graveyard that we mind losing to the exile effect. Yeah, they're gonna draw a card from the Cursebound Witch. That's fine. What's even in its... Cauldron would kind of suck. Vengeance is fine. Oven would kind of suck. The land, that fine. Fine. Another familiar would kind of suck. Black Cat's fine. Sorcerer's Broom is fine. I don't think there's anything that... Like, it would suck to get some of the, like, actual card draw ones, like a Cauldron. But to be honest, we're going to see whatever he finds. He's going to play it, like, basically immediately if possible. I mean, he could name Eldrazi and get rid of, like, my little tiny Myco spawn if he gets the Vengeance. But, yeah, I think we're okay. We also have such a large life total that I think this game's in the bag. It's not going to be, like, very smooth, but, like, we'll get there. Get the fuck out of here. Cruel Reality. Get your Planeswalker if they can't. I mean, okay. Myco Spawn, you've done your job. That's only small things, isn't it? In that case, we'll just Ugin the Ineffable and get rid of the reality. That's fine. That can actually sort of slow down the game too much, and I do want this game to end, since we're both operating on really high life totals, as is. Do I really want the Myco spawn? Like, he's got all the land he needs to cast, like, everything in his Lurrus deck. Yeah, we will go ahead and get rid of this. It's a nice card, but it isn't strictly necessary for what we're doing. Another Wormcoil's fine. There we go. Pretty fair and square. It was honestly fun to see a deck like that. Like, I haven't actually seen like a sacrificey kind of food sort of deck in a hot minute. But yeah, that is the basis of the list. Thank you all, so much for watching. The deck is a lot of fun. Go ahead and run it. If you're looking for like a fun ramp deck that actually has some interaction and doesn't just fold to a non-zero amount of aggression, this is a fantastic list for doing this. And also, if you like Eldrazi, fucking, this is it. This is like the Eldrazi deck that will exist in the format, likely. But anywho, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video if you like it, to subscribe if you like my grab bag of content and would like to see more in the future. And if you have any sort of questions like, I don't have X, what about Y? I am going to be honest, this list is not budget friendly. This thing is fucking packed to the gills with rares and mythic rares. So, like, you're going to be spending some money if you want this list. But I think this list has actually got, like, a lot of, like, potential for the future. I don't think any one card is, like, so strong that it's going to get nerfed. Ignoring the fact that Wizards is, like, largely, I wouldn't say abandoned this format, but, like, it's what's the term? It's the redheaded stepchild. It doesn't get a lot of attention, if you know what I mean. Anywho, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and stay cool out there, since it's getting pretty toasty. Bye-bye.